Welcome to Follow Your Curiosity. Ordinary people, extraordinary creativity. Here's how to get unstuck. I'm your host, creativity coach Nancy Norbeck. Let's go. My guest this week is Richard Wilmore, the host and executive producer of the wildly successful daily talk and variety series Make Your Day Richer TV. From 2016 to 2022, he hosted the award-winning The Richard Wilmore Show. He also co-hosts the Wolf Media Fest podcast. Behind the scenes, Richard helps numerous podcasts and live streams with production, editing, and talent booking needs through his company, Make Your Day Richer. Richard talks with me about how he found his calling as a talk show host, why you should start where you are with what you have, the challenges of making work for hire and turning your art into a business, the importance and difficulties of listening to yourself, and a lot more. Here's my conversation with Richard Wilmore. Richard, welcome to Follow Your Curiosity.
My gosh, thank you for having me here in your closet. I love it.
Yes, it's
been
very
a long time
exciting.
since I've been in a closet, so that's fun. It's fun, you know?
I don't know how many people know that I record in my closet since I don't do video. But no, it's fine. It's fine. But I do record in a closet because that's what I have and it works really well. And
I love it.
You know, I think there are videos out on the web that I've made from this closet because, if that's what you have, there's no reason not to start there. So,
yeah,
it's
so true. Yeah. I started without even microphones and lights. So that was an error. But that's what I did.
Yeah, you start with what you have and that's okay. It's better than not starting at all.
It's so true.
So I want to start you with the same question that I ask everybody else. Were you a creative kid or did you discover your creative side later on?
I was definitely a creative kid from the beginning. I think all my only memories are of me creating different worlds to kind of live in and escape to. So, always. I don't know how much my parents loved that because my other brothers, I have an older brother and a younger brother, very into sports, very into the normal things. And I don't know if they knew what to do with me, but I was lucky enough that they just let me do it and supported it. So I was always making up worlds. Yeah.
Yeah, that's always the question, did they think that was weird and try to tell you shouldn't do that? Or were they like, okay, this is interesting and different and let's run with it. So I'm glad to hear that they supported it.
Yeah, it was a little bit of both. My dad, I don't think really knew what to do with this kid who didn't want anything to do with sports.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad was the coach. My dad was all the things. And so suddenly he had this kid who just wanted to play teacher and store. And he was like, what do I do with this? And so he would make me do a season of each thing. I had to do t-ball for one season. I had to play basketball for one season. But if I didn't like it, our agreement was that I didn't have to continue doing it, but I had to try. And I hated him during that time while I was being forced to play t-ball. But, I'm glad that I did it. I learned that I didn't like it. So,
yeah,
otherwise I would never know.
I think it's fair to say you need to try it, but if you don't like it, you don't have to keep doing it. I mean, that's generally my approach with myself when I'm, in a place where it's ooh, I've never had quail before, but all right, I'll try it. And if I hate it, I don't have to eat it.
Have you had quail?
I have.
And?
I liked it.
Okay.
It's funny because I had forgotten that until I read something about it a couple of days ago and was like, oh, I forgot that I had quail at I went to this big wine festival 10 years ago and that was one of the things that they had. So I was like, okay, I'll try this. But haven't had it since. Don't really remember what it was like at this point, but tried it. So
interesting.
Yeah. But, I also get that perspective of, oh man, my dad's going to make me try this thing. I don't want to have to do it. Why are you making me do this, Dad? Why?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was, I just wanted to stay home and hang out with my mom or, like I said, play teacher. My entire childhood mostly was me I knew I wanted to be a teacher. Like, that's what I thought I would always do, and then that never happened, but, uh, that's what I always thought I would do.
How was your mom with hanging out with her? Was that like, okay, cool? Or was she like, what are we going to do with this kid? I need time to myself.
Great question. I think in my version of it is that she loved having me around and she wouldn't want it any other way. Um, no, her and I get along really well. Like, I think I was the closest thing to a daughter she ever had. So she was
Mm-hmm.
like, well, perfect. This is great. And so we would shop together, we would clean together. And, we, yeah, I mean, I couldn't call my mom and we can sit on the phone for, hours without really saying anything. So it's always been like that with her.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you said that you thought you were going to become a teacher and then you didn't. What happened?
What happened? Well, it started out with fell in love with a local weather person, this woman that was on the local news where I grew up. I don't know why I was like infatuated with her. Infatuated? Yes, that's the word. And she was just so like, she had big hair and she was like, looked so like fantastic to me. And I thought, well, that's what I want to do. Like, her voice was so, like, I was just drawn to everything about her. And so I thought, well, maybe I'm going to be a newscaster. And so I quit my job as a teacher as a 10-year-old and started literally at 10 o'clock every night. I would go and sit at the edge of my bed and pretend to do the news for 30 minutes. And I would just talk to the wall and pretend I was doing the news. And I wanted to do that until I fell in love again with another fantastic woman on TV, Rosie O'Donnell. And that whole thing just sparked like, oh, that's what it is. That's what I want to create and what I want to give people. And I
Wow.
haven't stopped since.
Wow. What did your
Yeah.
parents think of you doing the news to an empty room every night?
I I think um I don't even know if they actually knew that I did that part.
Okay.
I knew that I was like, once I went into, talk show host at, 11 years old, and I would get it. I had a little piece of printer paper and I wrote on air and I put it on my door. And then they started to know because I would go in there and I would full productions. I mean, I had the biggest celebrities coming on. I had the biggest musical acts. I had the lights, like, the fun little like disco. I would go to Spencer Gifts and like buy all their cool lights. Like, I had a whole setup and I would just sit there and talk to myself kind of like I do now. So not much has changed in 40 years, but I think still today they're like, they get it, but they don't get it. Like, they watch the show and they think it's great, but they're like, okay, like, whatever, as long as you're happy. I think that's always been the motto with my parents, has always been, as long as you're happy and you're not getting in trouble, go for it. So I
Well,
was lucky.
that's probably, the best possible scenario for most people. I mean,
Yeah.
I can picture some parents going, what is wrong with our kid? He's
Yeah.
sitting in there. It's 10 o'clock. He should be in bed. And it's 10 o'clock and he's talking to no one, making up
Mhm.
stories. And,
Mhm.
do we need to take him to see somebody?
Yes. Well, and I did
You
that
know?
too. But I mean, I was also that kid, like, I was in love with The Wizard of Oz. And so I had Wizard of Oz dolls. I had like, and so I was always, I mean, for lack of a better, I was always different, like, I
Mm-hmm.
was always different than my brothers or like, I don't think I was what they thought I was going to be. Although when I came out, my mom started crying and I said, why are you crying? And I was like 20 something. And she said, I've been waiting since you were 3. So I guess they did kind of know
Wow.
who I was and like, and they just embraced it. And so I was really lucky that they just let me be who I needed to be.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember when I was teaching, there were a couple of kids who were like that. It was like, when's it going to happen? Because it's any day now,
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
And then
Yeah.
that was pretty much our reaction too. It's like we've been waiting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and then I always think like, well, you think when you're in the middle of that you're so good at hiding it. Like, I thought I was gonna I thought I was gonna shock the world, and then it turns out everyone's like, "Well, duh, you idiot." Like, "Hello, your room is covered in Rosie O'Donnell pictures, and, you're listening to Madonna. Like, what did you expect?" I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, fine."
Yeah. Yeah. And yet it's so sad that we have this situation where people feel like they have to hide it in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like why can't we just let people be who they are?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's always seemed ridiculous to me. Like people are just people, you know?
Mhm. Mhm.
Everybody's just a person. Just let them be the person they are and move on with your life and let them move on
Yeah.
with their life. And as long as nobody's hurting anybody, what's the problem?
Yeah.
It just mystifies me
Yeah.
along with
I
many
think,
other
like
things, but
yeah. It's a 17-part series, everybody.
uh-huh.
Um, but I still kind of go through that, like, in when I'm doing my show, like, I have to very, when I first started, I remember, like and even sometimes now, like, depending on the guest or who like, my perception of them, who I think is going to show up as a guest on my show, what I wanna talk about that day, or how like, I don't wanna offend anybody, but I also wanna be myself, and so I want to it's kind of a dance. I don't know, I still kind of go through that sometimes of, like but then I think, well, I mean, I'm wearing a flower shirt, so, you
Right?
know
I mean, I think, having done several podcasts, including doing your show, I think there is always that, like, I want to go be myself, but you have in the back of your head, you're going, how is this coming across to other people? And
Right.
that kind of thing. And so it's interesting because I haven't actually sat down and really thought about this before. And maybe that's because I do have my own show. So maybe it's a little bit less because I'm used to doing something like this. But yeah, you are kind of like, even on a very low level, especially if you bungle something that just came out or you said it in a way that isn't really what you had in mind, but those are the words that came out, and there's that part of you going, boy, that came out
Mhm.
backwards, and I hope
Uh-huh.
it made sense, and whatever, because I don't think there's any taking it back and doing it again, and so
Yeah.
you're just kind of watching yourself try to be yourself, but you're also sitting there going, yeah, what was that? So it's a weird mix.
Yeah, because it's like a performance. It's sort of a
Yeah.
performance, but you're also trying to really just be yourself and be in the moment and be authentic. I was a theater major in college, and I quickly realized, like, I'm not good at pretending to be someone else. Um, but I'm fine with being just
Mhm.
here, and then if I screw up, whatever. But yeah, totally, like, you wanna be in the moment with them, but you're also there's, like, something about it that you're like, "Well, d am I professional? Do I look okay? Am I presenting okay?" Like, all that stuff. It's interesting.
Yeah, yeah, it is. So I don't know, there are it's interesting you talk about not being good being someone else. There are people who are super good at shedding their own skin and taking on that other persona, and it's easier for them to get up on stage.
Mhm.
Like David Bowie was like that. If you made David Bowie get up on stage as himself, especially I think early in his career, if I'm correctly recalling, it would have been a radically different story. But
Yeah,
get David Bowie to go on stage as Ziggy Stardust, completely different story.
completely. Yeah.
And so there's that kind of situation, and then there's, all I have to do is be me. But a lot of us are terrified of being
Mhm.
me.
Mhm.
And for some of us it's easier in certain situations. Like it's not necessarily tough for me to come hop on Zoom and do a podcast as me, but to get up on a stage in front of people live is a different story. I've done it, I enjoy it, I've found ways to make it less absolutely terrifying, with my heart pounding like on those old cartoons, out of your chest. But it takes some effort, The old stage fright is a real beast. But once you get going, it's a little easier. At least for me, to kind of like sink in and be like, okay, it's all right. Nobody's come after me. I think there aren't any tomatoes in the audience, and it's going to be okay. But yeah, it's a weird thing.
Yeah, I think I mean I get nervous before every show. I do it every, Monday through Friday, and every day there's like, am I prepared enough? And well, you've been on my show, I've made it way too complicated for myself. I've got graphics and videos and all this stuff happening, and I'm pressing buttons and usually screwing something up. So, but I love that. Like, I love that part of it, and I love the like kind of improv part of that too, where we're just kind of going for it and seeing what happens. But it's moving that from like fear to excitement. Like that I'm constantly working on of like, okay, you're not afraid to do this. You know how to do this. But there's just that. And then the same thing, once I start, as soon as, I introduce you, then I'm good to go.
Yeah. Well, and I think some of that is also at that point you can focus on the other person.
Yeah.
So you're a little bit off the hook, right? Because now it's about the
Yeah.
other person, which helps a whole lot too.
Yeah.
So, and I want to, since you mentioned it, since people who are listening can't see this, Richard has this fabulous set that is just, it's beautiful and multicolored, and it's like a fair or a playground, and it's got like balloons and a is that like a little mini merry-go-round behind you kind of
There's a Ferris wheel.
Yeah.
And a roller coaster and some circus tents, and there's all kinds of stuff.
And it's just so cool. And it's just bright and fun, which is perfect. It fits Richard and his show really well. And if you want to see it, you should check out his YouTube channel because it's on there. But it fits the whole personality of the show, and it fits Richard super well. And I'm enjoying watching it right now, but Richard looks relieved.
Well, that's why I did it. In case I suck, then you have something else to watch. Just a total distraction.
But it's just so cool. I just think that, it's kind of a shame here that people can't actually see it. But I just love the thought that you've put into it to make it fun, and it just fits really well. And I want to talk about how you got to the point where you have a set like this. Like, how did you actually get from doing, your own Rosie O'Donnell imitation in your house as a kid and majoring in theater to, I've got this wild, colorful setup and I do this show.
Imitating Rosie O'Donnell in my house.
Yeah.
Now at 40.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did my first show. So I did my first show in 2009, I think. And it was for Milwaukee Public Television. I had a friend who was in a TV production class, and so everybody had to do a show. And so he came to me and he was like, I have an idea for you. We could do your show. And so I got to do my show in front of a studio audience. I was the first one at Milwaukee Public Television to have a live studio audience, and so they were all nervous about that. And I did my show, and I ended up winning an award. And then they asked me to come back and do a live version of it because they were like, "Well, you know what you're doing, so let's see what happens." And so we did a live version. And then I got sucked into like retail world, and I just was working. And in 2016, I had moved from Milwaukee to Maryland, and I converted my basement into like a TV studio. And so I studied, like, I feel like I've been studying talk show hosting, set design. Like I've been studying it for, 30 years. And so I knew exactly what I wanted it to look like. I knew exactly what type of guests I wanted to have. I knew everything except for microphones and lighting. I knew nothing about those two things. And so I just converted my basement into, I built a set and I had audience members and I would have bands come in. Um, and that's kind of how it evolved. And then I moved from Maryland to Texas and I ended up doing it at a comedy club there for a while in front of an audience. I mean, I've done it everywhere from a basement to a bedroom to a comedy club. During the pandemic, I did it. I was living in a one-bedroom apartment and I did it in the corner of my bedroom. I set up a little studio in the corner. So, have have a show will travel. I don't know what the saying would be, but I can do a pop-up show anywhere that I need to. That's really how it's like started. It's been in all different kind of forms. I moved into like an actual studio for a while. Um, and that's where this came from because this is actually it's really tall and it's really wide. Um, but I don't know. I just love the like everybody's face and vibe changes when they walk into the studio. Like everybody you see their faces light up and you see them calm down when they're in here at the same time. It's very interesting. Some people think I run a daycare, but depending on the guests, it could kind of feel like that. But yeah, I don't know. I just like I love the way it feels
Hmm.
and all the color. When I was a kid, my mom let me take all the extra paint from our house and paint my bedroom. And so it basically looked like this. And I just took rollers and I just went all over the walls, like floor to ceiling, and created the same thing. And it's just something the rest of my house is very plain and relaxing. So I can be overstimulated in here. But I also feel like for the vibe of the show, that's what you need, Like you need
Right.
to have it in your face kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine anyone, who isn't the next Ebenezer Scrooge walking into your set and frowning at it. I mean, I
Yeah.
can't because it's just so cheerful.
Do you want to know something funny though? Is that I did have one guest who um said after that they really liked being on the show. I was a good host, whatever, but I should really take my set back to the drawing board because they did not like it. And they thought it was, and I was like, oh, well, if your only complaint is that you didn't like the set, I think we did a good job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I also love about your literal and metaphorical journey is that it takes me right back to the fact that I'm sitting in my closet right now as we're recording this.
Hmm.
Like you can set it you didn't sit there and say I'm going to go get myself hired by a TV network. You said I'm going to do this because I want to do it and I'm going to figure out how to make it work with what I have.
Yeah. 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 I didn't even know how to edit. Like, I went and filmed my first episode, which was a band. So I went to their rehearsal space with an iPad and no microphone, like I said, and just like started talking to them. And I had an hour of footage on this iPad. And I never put two and two together. I just knew I wanted to host a show. I didn't want to edit a show. I didn't I didn't want to do any of that. And I got home and I was like, oh, I have to do something with this. Like, I don't know why. I don't know. Not enough coffee. I'm not sure what happened, but there was such a disconnect of like point A to point B. And so I just Googled like free editing software. And that's how I started and taught myself how to do it and turned that into a business. People hire me now to do that and, produce their podcasts and edit their podcasts. And there's so many, I've done thousands of shows at this point, and half of them you shouldn't even watch because they're bad quality. But it was such I feel like I'm always learning, and that's also what I love. Like, I'm always going to the edge of, like, what I think I can do creatively, and then when I am satisfied with that, I can push myself a little bit more and learn something else, and, it's such a creative medium.
Mhm.
I have so much fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm sure it won't surprise you to hear that what you just said describes a lot of my experience when I started this
Mhm.
podcast. It was like,
Mhm.
I don't have the faintest idea how you put a podcast together. I will sit
Yeah.
down and listen to one of the interview shows I like and say, okay, this is how it's set up, and
Yeah.
that's how I'll set up my show because I
Yeah.
don't know what I'm doing. So like reverse engineered somebody else's show and said, this is how it all goes together. And then, oh, a mic. Well, right now I have a phone. So I have
Yeah.
a phone and I have an iPad, and
Mhm.
that's what we'll do. And got a mic for Christmas that year. Thanks, Dad. You just
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of roll with it. Like, okay, how do I use Audacity? Okay, we'll figure this out.
Right.
And that's it. It's like Google is great, or
Yeah.
was once upon a
Yeah.
time. you
Yeah.
know, but
Yes, YouTube now is
yeah.
where all the kids are going. Yeah, I mean, I always think of everything as like a TV show. So I had studied. I feel like I could write a history book on the Rosie O'Donnell show. Like I can tell you specifically set pieces that moved and when they moved and lighting and like all of that. I studied that of camera angles and where they should be and um like, I just knew, so I studied and took all of that, but I always like, to me, my show should be on TV, but, that's what I tell people when I'm working with them on podcasts, like, you don't have to have this to have a good podcast, like, this is just me being ridiculous and extra. Um, you can do it wherever, you know? I just started a podcast with someone, and we were thinking about how her office should be because we were trying to figure out how to record it. And I was like, well, why don't you just not record it? And like the look on her face was like, we don't have to record it. I'm like, you don't have to film it. Like, let's just use audio. And great, like it doesn't have to be expensive. It's time consuming, but it doesn't have to
Mhm.
cost you a ton of money and you don't have to have a space to do it. You just want to create.
Right, right, and I'm thinking right now, couple years ago during lockdown, I think, I talked to Eddie Louise Clark, who, with her husband in a one-bedroom apartment, produced an audio drama show. They did
Yeah.
all the music, they did all the special effects, they did the whole thing in a one-bedroom apartment. So, if you wanna start something like that and you think, "I don't have any way to do this," they figured out how to do it
Hmm.
in a one-bedroom apartment.
Yeah.
Like, there are ways to do things, and I think that a lot of people figured out during lockdown that, like, you could do all sorts of creative things in your own house because it was that or go completely stir crazy, so people started doing interesting things, with what they had, where they were. But, I mean, when I met them at a convention and, started talking to them was right around the time I was starting this show. I mean, they were literally doing a Foley workshop, how to do all of your own special sound effects and stuff like that. And I was like, you do this in a one bedroom. Wow,
Yeah.
holy crap. Like,
Yeah.
where do you put yourself? But they made it work and they did it
Mhm.
for several years. I'm not sure if it still is running. But, I mean, to listen to it, you couldn't tell that it was done in somebody's tiny little apartment.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, people can make all sorts of things happen because they're just determined and they don't want to
They want
wait
to.
for whatever it is that somebody else thinks they have to have in order to do their thing.
Yeah. When I was in my one-bedroom apartment, I had, in my living room, I had a full set. I had, like, the curtain that I would come out of, I had the backdrop, I had the desk, and I would set it up every time I went to interview someone, and then I would take it down and put it in a closet because it was my living room. And, uh, I just did it because I felt like I had to do it, like, I needed to do it, and I always do my show, like people always ask me about, like, seasons, like, "When is my season over?" And my seasons are always over when I feel like it's too much work, like, when I'm not having fun,
Mhm.
'cause, like, it's like, that's what I love about podcasts is there are no seasons and there are no time limits, so if I'm tired and I don't wanna do it anymore, then I take a break, and then every time, because sometimes I quit doing my first show after I got out of the hospital in 2022. I was like, "Okay, let's re figure out our life. So I stopped my show that I'd done for 6 years, and I was like, "I'm not doing that anymore." And then a couple years later, I was like, guess what I miss doing?" And now here we are. So but you need that, like, it's such a creative field that you need that time to live life and refill that bucket.
Yeah, and that's something we don't talk about enough either. We think that you gotta just go, go, go.
Yeah.
And that's something that every once in a while I think about with this podcast because I'm, halfway through year 7,
Mhm.
and I've never it's been week after week after week for, 6.5 years, and sometimes I think about, should I take a break? And I usually am like, "No, I'm still having fun, so I'm gonna keep going." But
Mhm.
every once in a while,
Mhm.
you kinda go, don't know."
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yes, and then you go through the, like, well, what if when I come back, people aren't gonna be there? Like, people are used to it, and then you get, like, all this stuff in your head. I used to do a weekly show, and then with this show that I'm doing now, because I always wanted to do a daily talk show, and we're 200 and some episodes in. I'm like, "I'm getting a little tired here." Um, and when I first, joined Podmatch, it was fantastic. Like, it was overwhelming, the response that I had from people, and I was doing, like, 7, 8 interviews a day, every day,
ooh,
and I did that for 2 months, and I was like, "Okay, I'm still." I don't know when this is coming out, but we're in April. I'm still using interviews from December
yeah,
because there were so many, and so I'm like, "Well, I wanna get them out because I don't want them to be so out of date."
right.
But, it was just a lot of energy output, and so I had to kinda figure out how to balance that. So I didn't wanna burn myself out because this is what I've always wanted to do.
Right.
Always wanted to do this my entire life. I have the opportunity, and I didn't wanna screw it up in 2 months. So,
Yeah.
it's figuring that out and being okay with changing. Like, I've changed different aspects of my show all the time just because something works better than something else. It's
Yeah.
okay.
And, can we talk about the fact that you can burn out on things you love doing?
Mhm,
Because nobody
mhm.
talks about that.
Yeah,
I mean, I've talked about how I didn't realize that this podcast was gonna save my life when I started it. It was in many ways like the antidote to some situations that I was in that were really wearing me down. But that doesn't mean that you still can't have too much of a good thing,
yeah,
you know?
100%. Yeah. Yes. And it's like I'll be like, "Well, this is what I always wanted to do," right? So, like, that's the thing that you put in your head of, like, you can't be tired because this is what you always wanted to do. But in reality, it's a lot of work that goes into a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of energy, and that can be really draining. You need time to go live your life, to be excited to go do the thing that you still love doing. So it's been doing it for almost a year, and it's been a very interesting, like, exercise in what I'm capable of and what I really like doing, what really makes me happy.
Yeah. It's a good way to find out, you
Yeah.
know?
Just jump in the deep end. Yes. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, there's something to be said for that too. It's sorta like what we were saying before, your dad saying, "You're gonna try this, and you're gonna try this, and you're gonna try this," you know? I mean, you found out in that case that you didn't really like any of it,
Yeah.
but, there's no way to find out for real if you're gonna like what you're doing except to just go do it,
Yeah.
And again, if you don't like the quail, you don't have to eat it.
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Exactly.
you know? Or whatever it happens to be. And it's okay if you think I mean, it's sad if you have had a dream that turns out not to match the reality, but you still don't have to actually do it if it turns out that you were wrong.
Yeah. At least you did it. And
Mhm.
at least you tried it and you learned from it. Like, that's always my thing is like, well, what did you learn from whatever you went through? Like, and if you learned something, then that's exactly why you went through it. Or it's like figuring out, okay, well, I didn't like that version of it, or that I didn't like the way I did how I did that. So like, can I change that? Change something about the way I'm doing it to still love it, you know? I'm sure you go through the
Yeah.
same thing with the people you talk to. Like I talk to a lot of artists who love to create and are beautiful painters, beautiful artists, but don't want to turn it into a job because they don't want to sell their artwork or be commissioned because they don't want it to be work. I
Mhm.
think it's so fascinating.
It's a fine line, you know? I mean, it
Yeah.
it you can really ruin something you love if you turn it into work and you don't do it the right way. And the
Mm,
problem with that is that you may not know what the right way is when you do it.
yeah. Yeah.
You know, if it turns into something where there was an article, and I'm sure I can find it again because I've managed to find it a couple of times, but there was an article again during lockdown about someone who was a potter. She made mugs. And she'd always done it on the side, and then, she started to get so much demand for them that she turned it into a business, and then it did cease to be as much about her and her own creative direction and more work instead of, art
Hmm.
and fun and whatever. And I think in that article, if I correctly recall, she was kind of wrestling with that. Like, what does that mean? And now I'm kind of stuck in this, which of course she wasn't really. She could have stopped at any time if she'd wanted to, but I think she may, again, if I'm remembering this correctly, have been kind of wrestling with, is that what I want to do? How long do I want to do this? Is there a different way to make it feel more like it used to? Because now it's not
Hmm.
what it was when I started. I mean, that's a tricky thing, especially if you start to feel like you have to make your art to please other people,
Yeah.
then it can really be rough because it's like, I don't want to make this kooky thing that somebody else wants. I want to make this wild, goofy thing that I like for me, And
Right.
that can be a really serious internal conflict that can be really tough to wrestle with. Like, do you make 10 of this kooky thing that you don't really like because somebody paid you to make it, and then find time to make the goofy thing that you really love? And is that enough for it to work for you? Or do you have to, come up with some other plan? Like, that's rough.
You're making my eyes water because I feel like you just hit on something that I've been going through that I didn't realize that was why until you just said that, because I've been going, like, it's with sponsors for my show. And so I have a couple sponsors and people are always like, well, you should have a sponsor packet. Why aren't you selling ads on your show? And I think that's why, is because then I feel like I owe something to whoever is paying me. Someone's giving me money to do something, and now I feel like I'm the, like, I don't know, the monkey at the zoo or whatever, where I like have to perform. And what if it's not to that expectation? Or what if I have to change to fit what that person wants? But I mean, they wouldn't, yeah. I mean, they wouldn't be coming to the potter if they didn't love what they already did, and they wouldn't be
Right.
coming to me if they didn't already love. So you have to like adjust your thinking. But yeah, there's that like
Yeah.
pressure then that we put on ourselves to do something different when people are connecting with us because they like what we're currently doing anyway.
Right. And there is, if somebody commissions a potter to, make, I don't know, a mug with a wolf on it off the top of my
Hmm.
head, and, odds are like they want something in that potter's style, right? That's
Yeah.
why they ask
Yeah.
for it. There's still the chance that whatever that potter comes up with is not going to be what they had in mind. So it's still a risk, it's
Yeah.
still a
Yeah.
gamble, but they came for that reason. So
Right.
it's something of a mitigated gamble, but yeah, it's kind of a tough thing. What do you do if you've gone and you've made the mug and they hate it?
Hmm.
I mean, presumably you keep it and you sell it to somebody else because somebody else is going to
Right.
love it.
Yeah.
But but still, like, what do you do then? Are you
Yeah.
working to spec, or are you working to create stuff in your style because that's what somebody came for? And not ever having done work like that, I don't exactly know how that works. I mean, I know, like, if you're doing a freelance piece, you're going to have to adapt it to what they want, or they'll adapt it and pay you for it and may or may not put your name on it. And it won't resemble what you actually sent them, but you'll get paid for it anyway, usually. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's still it's a weird thing,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And I wonder if that goes back to trusting yourself and believing in yourself and having confidence in your ability and your work to begin with, you know?
Yeah.
Because you can always, no matter what you're doing, you be like, well, it might not be good enough. It might not be what anybody like. That could go to anything. But eventually, you have to
Yeah.
not care, I suppose.
Well, yeah, and if you're creating that wolf mug from that place, you're probably going to screw it up.
Right. Yeah.
So that's the tough thing too. I mean,
Yeah.
I think you've got to listen to yourself first and follow that instinct. And I don't know, maybe somebody who's listening to this who's done this will, send me a note and tell me. But maybe you send sketches along the way and say, this is what I'm doing. And then if they hate it, you keep that sketch for something else and redo something for that person. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do think that, listening to yourself is such a key thing. And so many of us have been trained not to do it,
Hmm.
and I think lately I'm definitely noticing the more I listen to myself, the better things go. The more I trust myself, the better things go. So,
Do you also, I'm the same, like, after I don't listen to my gut on whatever topic it is, and then I go back and go, well, I knew that going into it. I knew, but I didn't listen.
I hate
Um,
those moments.
I know. And then you think you're gonna learn from that moment of like, okay, going forward, I know I'm not going to get the quail anymore because I didn't like it. And then the next time the quail, you go, well, I don't know, maybe this time. Um, I don't know. I don't know if you find that too, where like I know, just listen to yourself, listen to your gut, and then but there's that one thing in the back of your mind that's like, yeah, but my therapist would be so mad at that at that. Sorry.
I think it's so easy. Like there's a Richard Feynman quote about how like the easiest person to fool is yourself.
Um,
And I think that's so true. Like the it nobody is as good at clouding your own judgment as you are.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
10 other people can come in and try to mess with your head, and you're just going to be sitting there going, man, what are you doing? I know you're trying
yep,
to screw me up here. And they walk out of the room and leave you on your own. And that's when you're in deep trouble,
yep,
right? Because your own capacity to mess with yourself can be so incredibly strong. And that's where I have really screwed myself up is
yeah,
when all the little gremlin voices get in there and start messing with me, whether it's shiny object syndrome or voices of doubt or whatever. And it can be really hard to shut them all up well enough to just get quiet and listen to that actual, I think they call it a still small voice for a reason, because it's really
mhm,
hard to hear under all of that. and, kind of go, okay, what is really the right thing to do now? Because when you can hear that voice and listen to it, then it's a whole lot easier. And generally when I can hear that voice, I do listen to it because it's like, oh wait, that's the one. There it is. But the other ones can masquerade really well
uh-huh,
as that voice.
yes, yes, and there's so many of them sometimes.
Uh-huh.
That's what's it's not like the, devil and angel on your shoulder, it's like a whole brigade that's telling you all the things. It's, yourself, I suppose, trying to keep yourself safe,
Uh-huh.
right, from disappointment and hurt and all that stuff, but I don't know, it's so interesting that you always feel like you're the only one that thinks you can't do something, but really, like, so many everybody I talk to is always like, "Oh, yes, I have
It's
that
everybody.
voice, yes." Yeah, it's so
Yeah.
crazy,
It's
so
everybody.
sad. The same thing, like, with that guest that I told you about with the set design, like, that's in my head. I don't know how many 100 and some other great reviews I have, I couldn't tell you a single one of those.
Right.
But I can tell you that someone didn't like my set, and that is still what keeps me up at night.
That good old negativity bias just
Yeah.
blows it all out of
Yeah.
proportion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, but wouldn't it be great if it really was just the angel and the devil on your shoulder? Because then you'd know that's what they were. And then
Uh-huh.
you could just say, I'm not going to listen to the devil. I'll listen to the angel because the angel presumably has my best interest at heart, and away we go. But
Yeah.
no, they're all multifaceted, and none of them is, wearing a red suit and a trident and horns or a nice white robe with a halo. And so you have no idea most of the time which one is really the
No.
one that's telling you the truth.
Yeah. I know, and then you go, well, you listen to yourself, but then you're so in it that sometimes you're also clouded by that, like what you think, whatever, and so you need outside, I don't know, governance, like, outside someone to, like, tell you if something's working or not, but
Yeah.
then also, like, it's such a crazy kind of mind.
Or you do know and you're so sure, and then you say it out loud to someone and they
Yeah,
say, "Oh, come on.
yeah,
That's not really," because whatever this is what generally happens. I have some thing that I know is absolutely the way that I should do something or be or whatever, and it's completely outside the norm.
uh-huh,
And that's when I get in trouble because it's outside the norm. So I will doubt it. And then I will tell someone else. And because it's outside the norm, that's when I'll get, oh, come on, you don't really want to do that, right? Because
yeah,
that's
yeah,
dangerous for some reason, or it's just too weird or whatever. And so I go along and I try, kind of like what we were saying before about being yourself. I try to make myself be the other thing. And then it doesn't work. And I go,
yep,
yeah, I should have listened to
yep,
myself. Should have listened to
yep,
myself.
yep, yes. I used to have I would do the same thing. I would come up with, kind of out of the box ideas for different things or things that weren't normal, and I had a boss who didn't I was told no about all of it because it was either too weird, whatever, but then they would turn around 2 weeks later and pitch it as their idea,
Oh, that's the
and
worst.
then and then it was, like, the best idea ever, and then you start thinking you're the crazy one. Like, you're the
Mhm.
one that was like, "Wait, did I wait a minute, like, I think I thought of that 2 months ago," and it was not like, it's such a weird dynamic to put yourself in.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of weirdly gaslighty too, because it's like, "But
Yeah,
that was my idea, and
yeah,
you told me I was wrong and crazy,
yeah.
and now you're oh, okay."
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
you're like, "Well, maybe I don't have good ideas." Like, maybe, then you start, like, self-doubting yourself again. I mean, that in my entire life, like, knowing since I was 10 that I needed to be a talk show host and then trying to find 75 other jobs that were not that, and then not being happy with any of them, and then being like, "Oh, well, this is because you're supposed to be doing this, but you're
Mhm.
trying to do everything else but that."
Yeah, and I think there are a lot of people who fall into that.
Yeah,
Not everybody fits into neat categories that show up in want ads. And
yeah,
then you sit there going, "What's wrong with me?"
mhm,
I can try to turn myself into, a secretary or a project manager or whatever. And, no shade to any of those things. I know people who are great at all of that stuff. But if that's not what you are and you can't find yourself in any of those things, that's frustrating too. What the heck do you do?
yeah. I paid someone I was trying to find a job, and so I made a resume. No one was hiring me, and I paid a company to help me rewrite my resume, and the same thing because I've had such strange jobs. I owned a fashion truck, and like, I've done all these, like, random things, and they didn't know, like, what to do with me, like, how to form that resume, how that should
Mhm.
look like, because it wasn't, "He is a manager, he is a this,"
Yeah.
and they were like, well, they did it, and I was like, this is not what I've done, because they just sort of picked out the things that they could they knew and they knew how to describe, and it's still like that because it's just so out there.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had moments like that too, because my resume is not as varied as yours, but still very different things.
Mhm.
And to try to make something coherent out of it
Yeah.
can be
Yes.
really tough. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, so what am I exactly?
Yeah, yeah,
I'm a
yes.
combination of lots of different things, and unfortunately, just
Yeah.
saying, "Hi, I'm me," on your resume doesn't tend to work super
I
well.
know. Yes. It's so true. Yeah. Yeah, and how do you make it because, so many resumes now are read by, not people,
Mhm.
and so how do you make it so you stand out, but also make it look like you've done real work? It's that kind of complicated.
Yeah. Well, and I think so much is in that, read by not people.
Yeah.
Like I think we're losing something because we're handing all this stuff over to not people.
Yeah. Yeah, when I was, like, struggling to find a job, people would say, like, "Well, they just have to meet you." And of course they're gonna like, "You have such a great personality, they just have to meet you, and then they're gonna like, you just get an interview." And I'm like, "That's the problem, is just getting the
Yeah.
interview." Like, sure, once they meet me, great, but, like, I can't even get them to meet me.
Mhm.
And how do you get through that?
Right. Right.
Create your own job, that's what I did.
Exactly.
Like, "Well, okay, fine. Just do it myself."
Yeah. Well, and speaking of interviews, to pivot slightly, I wanna make sure that we get a chance to talk about some of the, interviews that you've done, because 'cause I'm sure that, like me, you've had a chance to talk to some really, really interesting people, and I'll bet some folks you didn't expect.
I feel like that every day, yes. Like, every day I learn something, and every day I'm shocked when I'm talking to someone and I get goosebumps, or I've talked to so many people that my eyes start watering. But I've also been able to talk to people in Rosie O'Donnell's, like, sphere and world, which is always, like, so fun for me because I feel like, okay, I'm just, it's like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon or whatever that is, but I'm always like 2 degrees and she's not eating bacon, and that's so annoying to me.
Mm.
But she'll come on eventually. So, yes, I have met some people that I've idolized since I was a kid, um, just by reaching out to people and being like, "You know what? I love you and I would love to talk to you." And it's so surprising when people are like, "Oh, okay. Sure. Let's chat." So, um, every day truly is like over the last however many years it's been, almost 10 years of interviewing people. The 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 generosity of people of just coming on to, someone they don't know and sharing their stories has been remarkable.
Yeah. Yeah, it's remarkable to me how many people, like what you said, when you ask, how many people will say, "Yeah, sure."
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that people think that you can't do that you can't just go up to somebody, especially if they're a better known somebody,
Mhm.
and ask that question. But, I've done it enough times now, and pretty much everybody, not everybody, but pretty close, says yes. Whether or not we manage to make it happen is a different story. But
Yeah.
it almost always gets a positive reception. And
Yeah.
yet people are just terrified. "Oh, I couldn't do that." They're gonna say no. And that's the thing. It's not even so much, I think they can't go ask, as that they are just convinced that they're gonna get the most horrifying no of their lives. Like, not just a
Blocked, a
no, but
restraining
"How
order. Yeah.
dare you ask me
Yeah.
this question?"
Yeah.
And that's not what
Yeah.
happens in my
That
experience.
fear of rejection is something real.
Mhm.
Yes. But usually it's those people that I'm intimidated to ask that end up going, "Well, that was really fun. I can also get you X, Y, and Z. I think this person would be a great guest on your show." And so that's always encouraging. But yeah,
Yeah.
that again, that jump to go, "Okay, I'm just gonna DM this person that I love on Instagram." I've had multiple people on my show because of that, that I grew up loving.
Yeah, you just never know.
Yeah.
It's worth taking a chance and giving it a whirl, and it's entirely possible that they'll say yes, and you'll be sitting there going, holy cow.
Yeah.
And it beats never asking and wondering what would have happened later on if you had.
Yep.
It's kind of like what you were saying earlier about at least you tried. Yeah, trying is better than wishing that you had later on, even if it doesn't work. At least then you know.
Yeah. Yes. At least then you're not regretting that you never did it.
Yeah.
You might regret that you did it if something crazy happens, but the likelihood of that is so slim,
Mm-hmm.
especially in this field. All they're going to do is either not respond or say no. Like, those are the worst things
Right.
that can happen. That's not awful.
Right. If they say no, you don't have anything less than you had before you asked. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. They think that, they're going to lose something terrible. No.
Yeah.
You are just exactly
Rosie
where
hasn't
you
said
were.
no yet. She hasn't said anything, but she hasn't said no. And that's why I keep asking, because that just means not yet to me. It's that,
Yeah. Yeah. If it's not a no, then there's still a possibility. So
Yep.
if you were annoying the heck out of her, I think you'd know by now.
Yeah. Yes.
So,
yeah. I know. I remember, like, she would always, like, when the internet was kind of getting popular on her show, she would say, if this was available when I was a kid and Barbara Streisand was online like this, I would be constantly tweeting her. I would constantly be bombarding her with stuff because I would want her to notice me. So I thought, well, okay, well, then that's what I'll do to you.
and yet, I mean, that's not an invitation as such, but it is,
Yeah.
a statement that she gets it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Like she totally gets it because that's what she would have done.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's
crazy.
worth a shot. Some of the people that I've talked to are people that if you had told me 20 years ago that I would have ever interviewed people from Doctor Who, I would have laughed at you.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely laughed at you. Like, what on earth are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah,
that's
and
happened.
Here we are.
So
yes.
You just never know. It's worth taking the crazy leap when you get the idea to start a podcast when you're in the shower at the gym one night. I mean, you just don't know where it'll take you, just like all the places that your show has taken you.
Yeah, and just the people you get to meet and the stories. And I know from my show, people have gotten jobs from it, and like lifelong friendships, just because two guests were on my show and they ended up meeting each other, and then one hired the other person. Like, I feel so lucky and privileged that, like, I get to be the facilitator of that, the ringleader of all of that, because you just never know who's watching, who's showing up, who's going to show up as a guest, and like how that affects people's lives. Because I know it did mine. Like, that's why I'm doing it. Like, Rosie's show like saved my life in so many ways that I feel like I know the power in that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is really a privilege to be able to have any part in something like that. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And then get to have you on my show, and then you invite me on your show. Like, come on. What kind of life is this,
It's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not a bad gig.
Not a bad gig at all. I did want to ask you, because I've been thinking about it since I said people should go on YouTube, which certainly they can and should do to check out your show, but which you can also listen to on a regular podcast player. But I would love for you to send me a picture of that set so that I can put it in the show notes on my website so that people can see it too, because I just think they should be able to do that, whichever way works best for them. So
I can manage that.
Yeah, but I've had a great time today, so thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
That's this week's show. Thanks so much to Richard Wilmore and to you. Richard's links and a photo of his set are in the show notes. I hope you'll leave a review for this episode. There's a link right in your podcast app, and it is super easy, and it really makes a difference. If you enjoyed our conversation, please do share it with a friend. Thanks so much. If this episode resonated with you, or if you're feeling a little bit less than confident in your creative process right now, Join me at The Spark on Substack as we form a community that supports and celebrates each other's creative courage. It's free, and it's also where I'll be adding programs for subscribers and listeners. The link is in your podcast app, so sign up today. See you there, and see you next week. Follow Your Curiosity is produced by me, Nancy Norbeck, with music by Joseph McDade. If you like Follow Your Curiosity, please subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to tell your friends. It really helps me reach new listeners.